back to another episode of The Male Perspective. I am your host, Lana Reid, and today is an amazing day. I get to sit down with another one of these phenomenal men of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. Today I have with me Dr. Corey Stayton. He's assistant professor at Morehouse College. Has some phenomenal work that he does, and I'm looking forward to sharing some time with him today. But first and foremost, as I always do, sir, I take a quick moment to pause and say thank you to you for making time for me today. Time is a gift.
You. Thank you for having me, and Connections and Patty for connecting us.
That's great. You know, yeah, time is a gift. Once we give it, we can't get it back. So welcome to the show. And let me get started because I have a short amount of time with you. Let me open up and ask, how long have you been a Sigma man and where did you pledge?
I've been a Sigma man since 1995. So that's going on, what, 30 years?
Oh, seasoned man.
English major, so it's somewhere in this, but I can't do the math, but it's close.
Okay.
At Xavier University in New Orleans. I owe that school so much in my development growing up, HBCUs, but also that particular HBCU was my training ground. It was where I feel like I grew up there. So
are you a New Orleans person? Your second line person?
I'm not. My mother picked that school and said, you are going here. And I went, I don't want to go to, I don't even know. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. So the fact
that whole second line thing was new for you, huh?
Everything was new to me. I mean, it was a whole different world, the culture, the people. I was not a very good student. So I think the requirement was you had to have a 3.0. I had nowhere near a 3.0, but my mother begged them to please let my boy in. And they went, okay, we'll let him in on probation. And I saw Black people that I had never just intelligence that I had never been exposed to. And it took me a while to understand because the women, it's a 13-to-1 ratio. So the women kicked me out the study groups. They did. And I stayed in the girls' dorm just trying to see and I got a reputation for don't even mess with him. He won't be here long. But eventually I figured out that nobody's talking to you because you're not doing any work. So I started to do my work and my motivation. I realized I had a brain and took off from there. But it was that experience really shaped, it molded me. Xavier was like a wonderful experience.
So I love it. I love it. And I love the transparency as well.
Well, I have to tell my students, I have to let them know that, hey, the light bulb did not come on for me till late in my college career. So I really thank them for working with me and giving me opportunity after opportunity to figure out that I could do this.
That's great. You know, and I think a lot of incoming college students or that transition from high school to college need to hear that, because sometimes we're told if it doesn't happen like right away, like you're a failure, but sometimes it just takes a little longer for it to click on, you know? So we need that little motivation. But let me ask you this one Sigma question, and then I'm getting into your the work that you do, because I'm really curious about some of the stuff that you got going on. But I dug really, 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 really deep in your Sigma history and found a gem of information about you.
There's gems, there's jewels.
There's jewels about you on the internet and Phi Beta Sigma. So I want to ask you, what is the 1914 Club and how are you connected to that?
Okay. The 1914 Club is a club that I really looked around at what was going on in the fraternity. And I think it was in South Carolina or another state that had a 1914 club, but they were doing something different. And I really wanted to focus on the collegiate students. Like college students don't have any money. They save all their money to go through the process and decide which organization they want to be a part of, and then they're broke. So it's hard for them to be a part of the conferences. It's hard for them to go to get the training to really understand how the organization works. So the 1914 Club was started to help students financially be able to go to conferences in the fraternity, but also to award some scholarships. You know, just to be a part of these great organizations, you have to be, you have to be excellent, right? There's got to be something about you that says, you really are about academic success. And so I wanted to facilitate that. I wanted to grow that within the organization. So the 1914 Club was just a matter of, having the older brothers, the seasoned brothers, chip in so that we could support our collegiate brothers as they go through and graduate.
Awesome. Yes, indeed.
And it's still going, and I am really amazed that it is still going strong. After I think I was the collegiate director, and then I became the state director, and then I took a break and I came back, and it's still going. So I'm really proud of that.
Yeah, much needed that. Yeah, the college financial struggle is no joke.
Yeah, yeah.
It's no joke. Well, let me go ahead and start picking your brain because when I saw that the work that you do, I was really like, oh yeah, okay, this is the guy. But part of your academic work is on cultural trauma, right? And quite often I run into folks within our community and outside of our community to say things like, 1619 was a long time ago. We're here in 2024. Let's get over it. It's over and done with. And I'm always puzzled by that perspective because, so what I want to open up with is, could you explain cultural trauma and how we are still in 2024, still experiencing, how does it manifest itself?
Sure. Let me start by kind of giving you like a broad definition of trauma in general, because I think a lot of people use it and not sure what they mean. Mm-hmm. But trauma is really just an overwhelming event. It overwhelms the psyche. And a lot of times when that happens, your body, your mind can't deal with what's going on and it will repress it. So this is why we talk about when you lose a loved one, it's a traumatic experience because oftentimes you can't deal with it. And some people try to go through their day acting like it didn't happen. And it affects other people. And then all of a sudden the smell will bring back the memory of that person. And then they'll relive the loss, right? Or a rape victim, right? The idea of repressing that event to the point where they don't even remember it happening. And they get hints of it as they live and they realize, wait a minute, when this happens, I freeze and I don't know why. It's because the mind has repressed the event. And so it's really a way to kind of deal with the unimaginable, the unthinkable. And so that's what trauma is. And when we talk about cultural trauma, we're talking about a lot of people from a particular ethnic group that have experienced the same overwhelming experience. So a good example of that might be 9/11. When 9/11 occurred, many people know where they were, what they were doing, and time almost stopped. So there's this experience that many Americans have felt over 9/11 that brings back, particularly those in New York, that bring back smells, will bring back the occurrence and the event. And so people experience it together. It's a communal trauma and people can kind of relive those experiences. Well, I myself and a lot of other colleagues are realizing that slavery, racism, those are also cultural traumas that people experience generationally, communally, and they get passed down from one person to the next. And so I think the preeminent scholars on this, I think some of them started with dealing with the Holocaust and recognizing how people who had survived the Holocaust, their genes, their DNA had changed because of the experience. So it's genetics. It can be transferred genetically. Well, if you transfer that to slavery and in that experience, then you get some of the same experiences that people are doing things and they don't know why, but it's something that's been passed down generation to generation in terms of cultural experiences, particularly with racism. Not necessarily slavery too, but oftentimes it's a particular event. It's not just the condition of, if that makes sense.
Well, let me ask you this, because, across the globe, we're experiencing immigration in many countries, and that's no different here in the United States. So what we have is a lot of our African brothers and sisters that are now immigrants here in the United States. And when they arrive, they realize that one, they're Black, and they're exposed to a lot of the oppression and racism that we have historically experienced. Does that manifest itself as cultural trauma to them as well, or not, do you think?
It won't be the same.
Okay.
Because that experience is not the same. Being born of and from this place, there's behaviors that you learn, and you'll see the difference between somebody that is born in New York versus Mississippi, and where to go, where not to go, how to speak, how not to speak. all those things almost become lived experiences that shape people's behavior, and the trauma shapes how they deal with those things. So we may deal with it differently, but it's still trauma. Those that are coming from outside of that experience, it won't be the same. They will have their own experience, their own traumatic experience. And I think people look at trauma as this very unique experience, and it really isn't. Trauma is something that every human being is going to go through. The loss of a parent is trauma. The idea of that food that you like that suddenly gets taken away can be traumatic for a child, right? So trauma takes on a lot of different forms and a lot of experiences. One trauma may have an effect on one person in terms of slavery, but another person, it doesn't have the same effect. It's like, again, I'll use rape because it's probably the most known trauma. It affects people differently. Some people have it occur to them and they're able to move right past it. Others, they are continuing the cycle and they can't get out of it. And so it just affects people differently.
Yeah, you know, I was born in North Carolina, and as a young girl, there were counties that, you know, you were told, we don't go there, we don't drive. And here today in 2024, even though I know there's a change, I still feel discomfort, you know, so
there is a line. And there's something I was thinking about this the other day, is that in being in Georgia, there's the mountains, there's all these cabins and places that you can go that I just don't feel comfortable going. I will go, but the idea of going to this cabin in the mountains and I have to pass Confederate flags, I have to go into these spaces that I know historically have not been welcoming to me, those things still play in my mind. And I don't think people recognize, they think like you said, some people think slavery is over with and done with. How do you feel this? Because I'm carrying the history of what has occurred in these spaces that I don't get away from those things. So even though we can say those places are now open to us, I still feel like a two-headed person when I walk into a bar in Rome, Georgia, and there's nobody there but white people. I'm going to feel a certain way. Yeah.
Especially, you know, being a Black man. And we know that still here in this country that, you know, I think after George Floyd, and there was the uproar, it wasn't even like a week later that it happened all again. So we're still not here we're still not at a safe space. So
we're not there.
But anyways, let me move on because I want to pack this all in. I was just so excited. I was like, oh, expanding on the cultural trauma thing. When I first started going to Belize many decades ago, the country Belize, one of the things that I encountered was that Black people in Belize fall into two pockets. They either have Spanish, Latin last names, or they have British, English last names. And the story that I was told was that the ones with the Spanish last names were the ones that when the slave ships arrived at the shore, they fought back and jumped ship and integrated with the locals and created families. And that's how their lineage developed Spanish last names. Whereas the ones with the English and British last names, they stayed on the slave ships. When they got to shore, they became enslaved. They kind of accepted their lot in life. And so there was a subtle current of pride and hierarchy in, you know, my people. So, and it always reminded me of stories that I hear continuously about us in the United States, about because we lost our name, we still kind of have this psychological trauma kind of thing. Is there something going on with our name and the loss? You hear it play out the opening scene of Roots with Kunta Kinte. Is that really impactful to us too in our identity?
It is. And it all comes back to where you lay your hat. Because you can move beyond trauma. And the way that you often do, many people have to, is that they have to re-situate themselves and see themselves in a different way. So for example, with the rape victim, it's the idea that they no longer see themselves as a victim. They see themselves as a survivor. And that means something different. They've recalibrated, they've replayed or re-narrated what has happened to see themselves as a survivor of. And so that idea of a victim, it's very debilitating. So to kind of see yourself in a different perspective, that helps a lot. So you will find, of course, in the Americas, people that will change their name to connect with the continent of Africa. And if that works for them, that's great. There are other people that I don't need to change my name, right? But there's some connection, there's some relationship, right? To where they can kind of create that sense of belonging to say that I can be African and American, or I can come from these two and not have to switch or take one and not the other. But it's something that it's a self-reflective process. It's like you have to figure out what makes you comfortable. Where I find difficult are those people that want no affiliation with Africa, right? That is like, I don't know how you do that. Yeah. But there has to be, and everybody's kind of have to deal with for themselves how you move beyond this traumatic experience and situate yourself in America and be okay, right? To redefine that. And, I think that America has, what is America without African-American music? What is it without Black? You don't have an America without Black people.
Yes.
So I think there's a valid argument to be made about the connection to this space and this place and being proud of it, but at the same time, being able to take it to task for its indiscretions, for its past and its future, its present, and where we seem to be going in terms of the racism. Doesn't seem like we're not ready. White people
we're not making concrete progress. It's like 2 steps forward and 5 steps back.
Absolutely.
Focusing on us as a Black community, especially when it comes to cultural trauma, I feel like some of the things that hinders us is when it comes to the intergenerational intersect, because I can tell you about grandparents, great grandparents. I'm not talking about it. I'm not discussing it. It's not going to be addressed. And without addressing it, it's very hard to heal. So when you consider the younger ones that are coming behind us, you want them to be as healthy as possible. Do you see some sort of way out of this for us to heal? Oh boy, that smile. Oh my.
I do see a way, but it's going to take a lot of work. It's like reprogramming someone who's been brainwashed and they don't even know it. I know this might seem minor to me, but my students now will take a passage from Martin Luther King and we'll dissect it. And in their writing, it's Martin Luther King freed us, basically he freed us. And they don't even address him as Martin Luther King or Martin Luther King Jr. It's MLK. So there's like this, I don't know what you call that, but it's just like, where's the respect?
Yes.
Where's the understanding that Martin Luther King didn't free us from anything? That's not, but that deification in media and how people people are drinking the Kool-Aid because it's the only Kool-Aid to drink. And with, the erasure of Black history from educational programs, I'm afraid we're going to see more of that if more institutions, HBCUs aren't stepping in, which I think they will. A lot of students will be coming to HBCUs because of what's going on in the education system. But it's right now, I feel like I'm a Star Wars fan. I feel like we're in the Empire Strikes Back, where Darth Vader and they are winning. The Empire is winning right now, and I'm hoping we'll come back in Return of the Jedi and do some damage. But right now, it's with everything that's happened with the Supreme Court and the laws and political situation. Yeah, it's looking not good.
Real scary. Yeah. You mentioned Martin Luther King. I think what was it, 2 years ago, I was on social media and I saw some flyer social media posts for a Martin Luther King party, and they had him with the and I was like, oh my gosh, if he was here, my god.
Nothing is safe, nothing is sacred. And it's not even a matter of being sacred, because we can critique him. But it just seems like there's no real understand the nuance. is missing. And that's what I feel like has to come back is people take the soundbite and they don't go deeper to recognize, well, what is really being said here? What are we really talking about? Can you really say slavery is a choice? Come on, like, no. But
or it benefited
African Americans, like that. There's no nuance in that at all. There's just it's a soundbite, so yeah, and that's our society. So it's not just Black people. It's again, it's an American problem that we have in terms of just being able to drill down, nuance, experience, and sit with things and really take them apart, analyze them. I think everybody wants to do it really quick, fast, in a hurry. It's abbreviated.
Yeah, that's what, and it's so scary because some of our younger Black folks are kind of like, as you said, drinking the Kool-Aid. I remember, what was it in the news a couple of months ago or 6 months ago when I heard that somebody tried to torch Martin Luther King's house. I was like, okay, it had to be a white person, had to be. And then the news, I was like, oh my, like you don't even understand the legacy in that. Like, if you had some issues with him, his principles, his platform, okay, I get it, but
that's where we're going. And what's the purpose? What's the goal?
We got work to do, but
yeah, we do.
And like you said, the HBCUs are coming into play, and I see a lot of Black folks that are, taking on the task of homeschooling because our history is not being taught in the educational arena. So hopefully we will get there. But let me segue to the HBCU thing real quick before I get you out of here. What is the benefit of the HBCU experience?
The benefit of the HBCU experience, there are so many. And there's some drawbacks. We have to admit that. The benefits, though, are learning in an environment that allows you to fail, where it is about you as an individual and not your race. You don't feel the pressure of race in here. Now it really is about your willingness to do the work. You're going to have to take this racism off the table because that's not an issue, where in a PWI, it could be the issue. And the idea of constantly being the only one, there is a pressure that comes with that you don't get in an HBCU. So I think a lot of students think that they are the unique one, the only one, and they get to HBCU and they go, oh, it's a whole bunch of us.
There's a whole bunch of
right.
We're a tribe.
The same thing of that acceptance, that cultural understanding. And that's what I think HBCUs give that no other school can give. It's that is special. That is, I don't think it can be duplicated. Now, this is a whole nother show if I tell you what we got to work. Because PWIs are really starting to go, we want you to. We want all of y'all. And maybe it's a money thing or not, but it's working because they have the amenities. They have the Research One institutions. They have a lot of the things that will give them that foot in the door that HBCUs are oftentimes struggling to give them that next step. So we've got to work on that. Those endowments.
We got to pour some funding in. Another concern that I have when it comes to not just the HBCU experience, but the college experience, the higher education experience. And this parlays into a book that you have out, English Composition. I've had the privilege of talking to a lot of brothers on this show who are educators in the K through 12 environment. And one of the things that they're continually expressing to me is that kids are just not academically up to par, So because you're a professor in college, do you see this new generation of incoming?
This is my next article. This is my next article. I see what has happened and transpired in K through 12 has now infiltrated into college. What you saw in K through 12 is that at some point they said, just as long as they turn in the work, give them the whole semester. They can have the whole semester. As long as they turn it in at the end of the semester, they're fine. And so they get to college and they're like, okay, that's what I'll do. And they are not prepared. So when I tell them the due date is Monday and they show up a week later, here it is. And I'm like, I'm not taking it. That's a zero. Their response is, you mean I did all this work for nothing? I'm not going to say you did it for nothing, but The due date was a week ago. They're expecting, because they put in the effort, they're going to be rewarded, as opposed to you didn't do it when it was supposed to be done. So the effort means nothing if it's not on. So yeah, there's some huge disconnects. They don't, the basics are missing. But a lot of the things that are happening in K through 12, now you're finding professors that are starting to bend and have those types of rules in place. And I can't do it. And this is from just colleagues from just in higher education in general. Chronicle Higher Education, a professor decided that, she would let the students decide when they would turn in all their work. And I guess that works for her, but I think there's something to be said for deadlines. There's something to be said for, hey, here are the hard and fast rules. You got to do it by this time. If you don't, there's consequences. Yeah, so I see a lot of what has happened in K through 12 education is starting to creep into, and my students, I have them write in journals. That's one of the first things that they write, is that they wish that K through 12 had prepared them more for the rigidity, the strictness, the deadlines that were expected for them to meet in college that they didn't have in high school.
Wow. You always think of, especially my generation, you think of college as like the bridge for adulting 101. So there's so many life learning lessons that you're supposed to get, and not even understanding the concept of deadlines. Like,
yeah, those are I try to tell them, look, I failed calculus 3 times with the same professor. And she liked me. She smiled at me. She did, and she still failed me.
yes.
Yes. And it was like, how could you like me and still fail? Because you didn't do the work, or because you just don't, maybe this isn't. And it was at that moment that I realized, she finally asked me, do you like this? And I was like, no. Then why are you doing it? Because my mama made me. What do you want to do? I like English. Change your major. I changed my major in things. I'm an English professor.
Okay.
But had she just passed me, had I just been allowed to do what was expected and not what I really wanted to, I don't know where I would have been. But I don't think they see those. And those are hard lessons to learn, but for a lot of them, that's just not. It's the one thing I think that students learn, is how to fail and be okay. Right. Yeah. And live and recognize that, yeah, it's going to hurt, but you will live another day. And that, I don't know if a lot of students are getting that.
Yeah, because, I guess we're hearing over and over again in K through 12, we're just rewarding you for just showing up.
I don't want to deal with the parents. I don't want to deal with, we'll just move you along. And hopefully, if you take your education serious, maybe you'll figure it out. But I know I didn't figure it out. I didn't figure it out. Luckily, I had the opportunity to fail enough and have the light bulb come on before it was too late and those doors were closed to me.
Gotcha.
Now there are students that those doors, if you mess up too much, those doors are done. You're not getting in. That's unfortunate.
Great. Have the students at Morehouse recovered from the pandemic? Are they back on track, or?
I think we recovered in terms of community, in terms of trying to get things back to normal. But in terms of mindset, I don't know. I think we lost a lot in that time that we were away. I think students are now coming in. These are students that were they were like maybe freshmen when COVID hit or something like that. So we're still getting those students. And I think it's just a ripple effect. Wherever they were in COVID, they didn't get that part that year. So I know I'm doing a lot more mediation in English 101 and what's a noun, what's a verb, what's an adjective, because either they didn't get it or they haven't seen it since 3rd grade. And I think you need those skills.
Wow.
So it's different. It's different.
Okay.
I love it. Sorry. They are, I mean, don't get me wrong. Morehouse has the brilliance. But you're talking about the task of Morehouse is to take all of these students from all these different educational, all these places that some of them were excellent, some of them were not so excellent, and bring them in and get them where they're supposed to be.
Gotcha. Okay. Understood. So just before we started today, I briefly read an article where I think it's Dartmouth was reinstating SAT and ACT. Does the standardized testing impact incoming students at Morehouse, or?
It does. Oftentimes we will use standardized testing for placement. And I don't think it's necessary. This is just my opinion. There are better ways to indicate whether a student, standardized testing is not the way. But for a lot of colleges and universities, it's an easy way. Right. And then we can figure it out later. But there are a lot of things that we've got to fix. We gave up on remediation. We gave up on all this because parents got mad. They were like, I'm paying for a class that I'm not getting credit for. Yeah, because he's not ready. Yeah, he's not putting him in a calculus 1 class and he needs some pre-algebra. Like we got rid of those, and we kind of need to bring those back. But that's going to be there what all colleges and universities are struggling with.
Okay. Well, last question before I ask you my random question. You professor people tend to be very stressful for college students, especially the young ones, the freshmen coming in. You just tremble in their boots when they see you. So if you had to give some advice especially to some incoming freshmen, about how to have a fruitful relationship with your professor and make your college experience very rewarding, what advice would you give them?
Breathe. I think some are wrapped so tight that they can't. I gotta breathe. And the second thing that a lot of students just don't do, talk to your professors. Get to know them. They're human beings. Get to know them. When you establish those relationships, that's really how you get through. I mean, it's hard to you want to help those. You don't want to fail anybody. So the idea is that when you see a student that's struggling and they're willing to come to your office hours and get the help that they need, you're going to give them everything that you can to make sure that they can get over that difficulty that they're having. But if you never come to me, if you don't care, I can't care more than you. And for a lot of students, it's like, if you know you've got a 65 average, you probably need to see me. You don't want to see me because you see me as the 65 and it's not me, right? It's not me. We got to work on this together, and that takes both of us. I can only go so far. I can only ask so many times. And I think that might be the beauty of the HBCU, is that professors are willing to pull their students' coattails and say, hey,
come see me now.
If they don't come see you, that's on them. But at least we will make that effort to say, hey, this might be what you need to do. So I would tell them, 1, to breathe, and 2, establish that rapport with their professors. It's something that I remember. It took me forever to do that, to really get to talk to them and recognize them as people and not teachers. Like they got a life, they do things. Yeah. And the more you see that, you start to see how all of this works. That this is a human endeavor, and we're all learning, right? I'm still learning. I have mentors that teach me stuff all the time. So.
Yeah, HBCUs, you have an extended family of aunties and uncles who just happen to be your professors, right?
Yes.
I love it. So let me ask you my random question, and then I will release you from my crying. Let's see what we've got for Dr. Stayton here. If you had to give up your phone for a week, which app would you miss the most?
Ooh, that I would miss the most? An app that I would miss the most? I wouldn't. Take it all.
Your students don't email you?
And I wouldn't miss that one. And I would definitely not miss that one. Give me, because my students have access to me. They don't have my phone number, but they have this app called Remind App. So anytime they have a problem, they just hit me up. But if I can get rid of all of that and nobody could reach me, oh my goodness.
Oh, so they have no reason to be lagging behind if they can reach you at all times.
And that's what I tell them. It's like, you have no excuses. I don't want to hear, I didn't know. Yes, you did. You could have said, hey, Dr. Stayton, is this? Because I'm not sure. You could have done that, and they don't. But yeah, take it all. take it all.
Technology.
Wow. Yeah, I'm definitely a fan.
Brain rot. It just.
So yeah, you got to go.
Yeah.
Get back
Okay.
to humanity.
I love it. I love it. So if we were to be down in the Atlanta area and we wanted to peek in on one of Mr. What days do you teach?
Oh, this semester I'm teaching a world lit class at 1 o'clock, which is an awesome class. Where are we now? We just did Genesis and went over the whole story of Genesis. And now we're looking into Gilgamesh, and it's awesome discussions that we have. Students are like, no, it's not. It's this way. And this is like, it could be that way, but it could also be this way. Can we look at it from different perspectives? And so we have great discussions. For the first time, many of them had never heard Maggot Brain from Funkadelic. So I will play that. And I want, where does your mind go? So they're so used to being told how to feel and how to think. But when you just listen to music that has no words and now you have to participate with it, takes them someplace different. And I say that's what literature, oftentimes it'll take you places different if you allow it. So I teach Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 o'clock. And I do 2 English composition courses at 8 and 10. So they're working on the fundamentals of writing.
And the kids, oh, I shouldn't say kids, they're young folks. They stay off their phones?
Oh, they don't have it's 1 point off their final grade. If they should text or start smiling at their crotch while we're lecturing, no, we don't. No, this is school time. We're gonna do this. And if you do need to use your phone, go outside as if you're going to the restroom, handle your business there and come back. And then we can work. But I don't answer my phone, you don't answer your phone. We are good.
I love it. Well, Dr. Stayton, I have truly enjoyed my time with you today. If I had more time, I would truly pick your time about this cultural trauma. You know, my folks is just, you know, I'm stuck in between generations, and I'm always like, you know, you think like that? That's really how you, and then I'm the young kids, I'm like that. Well, okay, but so anyway.
I have to say that if I could just, my mom was the one that kind of helped me figure out that's what I wanted to do for my dissertation, because ultimately I just looked at it as Black people are dysfunctional, and that's not a good way to look at that.
No.
And she was like, I don't think you mean dysfunctional. And I had to think about it, and she made me really, again, the nuance. What are you really getting at? And what I was getting at is this traumatic experience.
Yes.
It's kind of put a lot of people in this revolving door and this cycle of, and that's what I was trying to get at. And so that led me to trauma. And so I'm looking at Toni Morrison's works in trauma.
Awesome. Beloved, right? Beloved, right?
Yes, that's my, so that's my dissertation. And now my mentor, Dr. Loftus, is pushing me to write a book. And I am come on, that's a lot. It's intimidating but again, I have to have mentors that I look at and go, wow, I want to be like that when I grow up. So she's pushing me, and I'm moving.
There you go. One paragraph at a time. One paragraph at a time. Awesome. So I'll keep my eye open for that. And you know, it's very important, the work that you're doing, because especially within the Black community, I think a lot of us don't realize that I do this because my mother did this, and because her grandmother did this, and because her great grandmother did this. You know, and you really need to start to unpack all of that.
Yes.
So
yeah, gotta know the history. Gotta know your history.
Well, sir, I appreciate you imparting into the minds of our young folks and our future, getting them educationally ready for this world. I appreciate everything you're doing, especially with the cultural trauma, and I appreciate you for your time today. So
thank you, Lana, and I appreciate you. Keep doing what you're doing. I truly appreciate it. I know we need it. We need it so much. So yes, keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much. That is all for this week's episode of The Male Perspective. I'm your host, Lana Reid, and I will see everybody next time.